reflecting upon the 4 years since I gave my last chapel, I was struck by how much my life has changed in a short period of time. Then I was a full-time math teacher living on flight deck with my wife, fully engaged in the tasks which define a busy faculty member. Back then, we used to put the titles of chapel speeches in the Blair Today. But Ms. Klein, who was at that time responsible for this task, simply put, Mr. Molteni, math teacher. I quickly reassured everyone that I was not going to talk about math that day, and instead spoke about the importance of experiencing failure for personal growth. It was a rare moment of vulnerability for me in a relatively stoic Blair experience. I rarely took the stage in my early years at Blair, and so I spoke that day to share the things I thought I had failed to accomplish, and what I learned from those lessons. When Reverend Durkee asked me to give a chapel this fall, I considered rehashing that chapel and its valuable insights. Thankfully, I put 2 and 2 together and realized that giving a chapel on failure on the day that grades are posted was an easy way to make everyone freak out unnecessarily. No, I'm not here today to talk about midterm grades, academic honor, PSATs, signature assessments, or any of the other things you likely presume I'm talking about when I walk on this stage. It could be worse, though. When I took over the Dean of Academics job, the thing most students asked is whether or not I would be the one to give the fire drill announcements now. I did not come up here today to give the fire drill announcements. In my heart, I know I have a chapel about mathematics to give, but today isn't that day either. No, I'm here to talk about one of the few constants in my life since the first day I came to Blair in the season where that experience matters most. Today I want to share with you a story about third soccer. Oh, it's just thirds. It's just thirds. Come on, Mr. Molteni, it's just thirds. I've heard them all. Third soccer, an institution of equal renown and infamy. I arrived at Blair in the fall of 2008, hired not for my coaching acumen, but for the fact that I taught math and Blair needed 3 people to do just that. But we all contribute beyond our disciplines in this world, and I was to work with the third soccer team during the fall, then under the leadership of Mr. Lunger. At this point, I had last touched a soccer ball when I was 14, having played rec soccer through most of my youth until the call of crew took over most of my high school career. I didn't match Mr. Lunger in technical knowledge, skill, or passion for the sport. I was essentially an accessory to a program that itself was an afterthought for most of the kids. To give you some insight on the focused nature of our squad, one young man missed the bus to our first away game against North Warren. Not to be deterred, he promptly got on a skateboard and tried to travel down Route 94 to the game. Before taking a ride from a random person who admittedly our player couldn't identify. Thankfully, it was a Blair faculty. The season only went up from there. I was introduced to thirds with a team that didn't really matter too much. Not to the students, not in its record, certainly not on Petty Day. It was important that kids have a good experience, but the idea that players would do anything other than be corralled for 2 months was not ingrained in our collective commitment, mine included. When Mr. Lunger moved over to girls JV soccer the next year, I waited to find out what skilled, talented coach we would hire or bring over to shape up the program. I didn't have another sport to coach in the fall, and enjoyed getting to know new students to the school, even if getting them to play soccer was not a graceful pursuit. So I was prepared to stay on as assistant coach. I waited patiently, comfortable in my own belief that no one in their right mind would be content having me as the head coach of the squad. Have you ever had that experience when someone is pointing directly at you, but you immediately look behind you to see who that person is that they're actually pointing at? That was me when I found out I would be the head coach that year. We lost almost every game that season, by a lot, an average of 4 goals. We scored just 5 goals on the year, and 3 of them were on ourselves. Tied 1 game 0-0 against Hill. I was, of course, not present, so my coaching record remained unblemished by success of any sort. Nevertheless, sports are filled with stories of one time, and we headed into our game against Petty filled with the uplifting spirit of one time. And after a furious first half, we entered halftime tied 1-1, having forced Petty to score an own goal from an exuberant kicking inside the 6 off a rare corner kick from our squad. Wrapped up in the moment, I gave a rousing speech about this being our time at halftime. And we were all ready to be part of a legendary victory. We promptly gave up 4 goals, and the heroics faded into a cold memory. I was certainly not the coach that third soccer needed. I loved the experience, but questioned those who thought it made sense for me to take the lead. I would imagine most of you have been there at some point, caught between the belief of someone else and your own feelings of inadequacy. In a community where so many invest in your lives, It may feel like lots of people are believing in versions of you that you do not feel exist yet. Life holds many opportunities for us all, and in certain moments, we become acutely aware of just how ready or not ready we are to be successful in our pursuits. The gap between who was needed and who I was never more clear to me than on Petty Day that second year. But I wanted to win on Petty Day desperately. I found myself caring about that particular game with a passion that was regularly surprising, since I was relatively devoid of the skills necessary to impact the outcome. Furthermore, my life had not been... Thank you, Barry. Furthermore, my life had not been full of a lot of big athletic moments and victories. My biggest moment likely came in high school, when my freshman 8 on the crew team was seeded #1 for New York State's. In the time trials before finals, I caught a crab. And for those of you who have never rowed before, that's what happens when your oar gets stuck in the water and can't come out, and everyone else in the boat just looks at you and waits for it to get out of the water. And we lost 15 seconds off our normal time. It would have been fine, we made finals. But right after those trials, a storm blew through the race course and canceled all the other races. Medals were given out based upon time trials, and I was definitely responsible for us not standing on the podium. So perhaps Petty Day resonated with me as a chance to care. Not just for myself, but to care and craft an experience for so many of you. One at least 60 of you in this room have been a part of with me. As a non-varsity athlete growing up, but someone who always loved to play and compete, I could understand and connect with my players over this one opportunity to be important, to contribute to victories that mattered, and add validation to the fact that we were spending 2 months together on a sport that had not previously been a top priority for all of us, and might not ever be again. So fast forward 2 years, and I once again head coach after a well-earned demotion to assistant the prior year. This third team also lost every game it played. This time, however, we lost almost every game by 1 goal. We weren't abysmal, we just hadn't learned how to win. Once again, we had 1 tie on a record, a game I had also missed. Just like the 76ers, my coaching tagline was trust the process. So we took our record on the road to Hightstown for the one day all year we would matter. No one expected much from us at 0-10. We had almost no fans on our field for most of the game. Some things never change, right, Will? But in the absence of attention, we rose to the challenge of the day and took an 0-0 tie into overtime with Petty. And there are days when I wish I was making the next part of this story up. With 1 minute left in the second overtime period, Petty hit a corner kick, and a disorganized scramble for a loose ball led to a hard strike from a Petty player that was deflected away by our hand. Too bad it was our center back's hand. It was an intentional handball, a red card, and a penalty kick with no time left on the clock. No one on either side of that field had ever encountered a moment as charged the final seconds of that game. Petty lined up to take their PK, and we held our breath on the sideline. Quickly it was on its way, and our keeper, Ollie Durling, deflected it away and out of bounds. Jubilation followed, squelched quickly by a referee calling it off because he hadn't blown his whistle to start the play. A second PK was awarded, and that one found the back of the net. In a matter of seconds, we had saved the day and lost it. There was something different about that team. There were good reasons we only lost games by a single goal and rose to the challenge of Petty Day. It was the thirds team I had which found a way to truly care. They tuned out the enticing call of "it's just thirds" and gave themselves to the mission of being important on the one day when the school needed us most. But born in our lowest moment that year was the heartbeat and the mission of a team that would go on to excel in the next 2 years. 2 players that you might know, Brian Isbay and Dean Corrado, returned to play thirds for 3 consecutive years, which perhaps tells you something about their initial skill level. But what they brought was a commitment to a sport that hadn't previously belonged to them either, and it spread throughout the squad. Thirds had always been the intersection of desire and requirement. Some end up on the field because they wish to be there, and others because they have to play a sport. Together we have to make a shape that fits us all. To do it right, takes everyone making the choice to care. In the interest of brevity, I'll fast forward over the very successful seasons that followed. Good players joined the team, many players came back for multiple years, a lot of people were in the right place at the right time to have an incredible 13-3 season, and some resounding Petty Day wins. I had wanted to win very badly, and we had finally captured those victories as a program. Yet there's not much of a story in simply being better on paper than your opponent. No one goes to see that particular movie. It's like rooting for the monsters in Space Jam. As Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes learned, the more rewarding success is not in being the best, but what you can gain from trying to become the best. And I sense that very few of you have seen that movie, so we'll fix that later on. It takes a long road to become what's needed. Sometimes we arrive at a situation and we are successful by merely showing up. There's a predictive phenomenon at the third level of soccer. If you show up at the field and the other team looks like a group of squabbling cats, chances are you're going to win that day. Unless you also brought squabbling cats on the bus. Then whoever has less handballs in the box will be the winner. I think the factors which produce this situation naturally arrive from the annual construction of a thirds team at any school. Most boarding schools in having an athletic requirement say that you must be here, right? But there is no requirement that you are necessarily there. Where here is signed up for a team, and there is a reflection of the growth a committed player makes over the normal season. As with many things in our boarding school life, we yearn to be in the here that paints us as successful people, and struggle with what must be done to get there, especially when the gap is wide. The journey from here to there is what I feel is the true story of third soccer. It's the choice to care when the road is very long. And it's not just a third soccer story. It's a story that belongs to all of us. Of course, now that I've told you that story belongs to all of us, I have one more third story to share. And it's not a terribly old story. Some of you were the actors in this particular drama. It was fall of 2014, your freshman year, seniors. A long time ago. We began our season 2-5. While not a terrible team, our goalkeeping trio of Jason Newman, Will Pinkerton, and Philip Carpiano kept us out. We had pieces, but not the victories to show for it. We wanted to reach 500, though, and we agreed as a team that success could be defined in that way. It would mean winning at least 4 of our last 6 games. And slowly it started to happen. We won 3 in a row against a variety of Maple opponents, not yielding a single goal along the way. With 2 games left, we were 5-6. Close to our goal, but in danger of falling short because of a behemoth of a Lawrenceville team standing in our way. On a Wednesday night in early November, we traveled to play Lawrenceville's freshman team under the lights on a turf field where no one would see the game. Well, there was one fan. It was Jason Newman's brother who went to Lawrenceville. A young man I spent half the first half yelling at to stop heckling our keeper. Meanwhile, our team was fending off a horde of talented Lawrenceville players. These players were incredibly fleet on ball, besieging our defense like flooding water against a dam. Yet we were a practice wall, resolute in the face of the unyielding attack, bolstered by the investment we had made to improve over the prior weeks. At halftime, we were again tied 0-0, and feeling pretty good about the effort thus far. We had not come close to sniffing the goal, but Lawrenceville had failed to capitalize on their chances, and were clearly frustrated about not being able to break through as a clearly skilled squad. Early in the second half, they struck on a pass over the top to their speedy and talented striker. The road suddenly looked a lot longer in that moment. Up until that point, we had survived. We were here, but there seemed temporarily impossible. I'd like to think it was the spirit of thirds in that moment that came alive to save a game that didn't matter to any but those that took the field that day. I remember small moments from that game, like Paolo Kalanoff tackling the small striker aggressively out of bounds a few minutes after he scored, avoiding a foul call, but firing up the bench. Scott Neary, a 3-year thirds player with a nose for big shots and goals, started to push a tireless attack up the wing, even as time slowly slipped away. With just a minute remaining, we struck a cross in front of the net, and suddenly Scott was there, as if from thin air, slipping in to bury the ball off his right foot in the back of the net. It was an impossibility turned reality by sheer willpower. Immediately after our goal, Lawrenceville roared back to life, slicing through the defense and producing a shot from 6 yards out with no one in sight of the attacking player. Jason Newman made the diving save of his life and the game went to OT. 10 minutes of furor later and we emerged with a tie. The most important tie you could possibly imagine, an expression of our efforts to become the best. I'll never forget that game and the feeling of sheer joy walking off the field that night, knowing that we had not yielded to inevitability. We won our Petty Day game 4 days later, but it's that 1-1 tie that I always think of when I recall that year. And I'm sorry to all thirds players that came before and after, but this was the squad that I remain most proud of, because of the choice they made to become great when they had a long way to go. It was the first time that I felt truly impactful as a coach, capable of helping students not settle for simply, it's just thirds. I owe many thanks to the third soccer players who found cause to believe in me, and in turn inspired me to care about becoming a coach who mattered when I started here feeling like a mere accessory to a team. Belief is a powerful two-way street that I have shared with many players of the thirds level. We believe that each other matter in important ways, even if we are not the right people for the job at the start. We must become what is needed when making the choice to care. That doesn't mean we'll be perfect or the best. It means we'll do what is necessary to become something more. I realize now that what I remember most about the past 10 years is not the times we were the best, but the times that we became the best. In that journey lies the most important message of all, the quintessential spirit of thirds that exists in all of our lives. So frequently we say to ourselves, it's just thirds. You probably don't say thirds, but I'm sure you can imagine a number of experiences or things that easily fill the blank. It's just homework. It's just formal dinner. It's just my parents. It's just another chapel. I think we sometimes spend too much time thinking about who we are, and not enough time thinking about who we are willing to become. Regardless of how difficult these paths may be, or how unequipped we may feel to traverse the space between here, where we are, and there, where we might be expected to go. I won't pretend that I have in some way arrived as an expert coach, nor do I think of myself as having much responsibility for what third soccer means here at Blair. I am a character in the stories I share today, but this story does not belong to me alone. The journey has taught me much about who I wish to be as a teacher and a coach, and who I want you to be as people. I challenge myself regularly not to hide behind it's just thirds in all parts of my life, to care deeply about what I invest myself in, even if I know that it might be a long road ahead. If you take away anything today, remember that you don't have to be the right person for the job to get it done. What matters first is that you choose to care. And I would be missing an opportunity today if I didn't pause, with less than 10 days till Petty Day, and remind you how important you all are on that day. Petty Day carries the value we ascribe to it. There are many moments where we could have collectively decided it's just Petty Day. Stretches in the school where victories were few and the road stretched before us felt incredibly long. Yet our ongoing commitment to this day, to me, is a reflection of our collective belief as a community that each person here is important and can be the right person for the job. And when I say you are all important, I don't just mean the athletes. Fans, you are the ones who must carry the belief that we will emerge victorious. Be unafraid to care about the efforts your friends are making. You might see incredible things along the way, like a JV tennis match that decides it all, a cross-country race won in mere strides at the end, goals to end field hockey and soccer games in overtime. There'll be jubilation and heartbreak for us all, as to wager something on the field forces us to be vulnerable to all possible results and accept defeat when we don't deliver the day. And if the gap between who you need to be and who you are right now is pretty wide, don't yield to the inevitable. Give it everything you have on that day, and let it be the start of something great. Let it redefine your belief together, that you and your team will get there, even if this year is not yet your time. So to all of you, I say good luck, and I hope that the real spirit of thirds will be with all of you, not just on this petty day, but in all the things that you do. Seniors first.